Today I want to give you some of the best grain options to eat because I know a lot of people love rice, we love wheat, we love white flour, we love wheat flour. So I want to break down the history of grains, but then I'm also going to leave you with some of the best grains that you can add to your diet on a regular basis, and then those grains that aren't so great for us that lead to this kind of profile, those are the grains that you want to limit as much as possible. We have the holidays coming up. A lot of people are going to indulge, which is fine. You do that once in a while, but some of those grains do not need to be a regular part of your diet. So we're going to go into the history of grains. Right? Be patient with me because you know my videos are long. And I want to explain to you what is the first grain. All of us, especially in the Caribbean, rice, 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 rice. That's all we know. There's so much more to life than rice. The original grain, the first grain that was around from 10,600 BC is called einkorn. Einkorn is the first grain. And you have to look at a lot of these grains or anything that you eat as a living organism because these things come with chromosomes. What are chromosomes? Chromosomes are this little X. It could come in a variety of shapes, but essentially it packages DNA, which is a large molecule that provides all the necessary information for us as humans or fruits or plants or animals to survive, reproduce, and then they contain genes. So einkorn is an ancient grain that came out in 10,600 BC and has 14 chromosomes. This was a naturally occurring grain. The next grain is called goat grass, also known as, listen, don't judge me for my pronunciation, Agelop speltoides, which I believe is a family of spelt. 6,000 BC. Now we're moving along. Einkorn mated naturally with goat grass to produce Emmer's wheat. See, I got it right here. We have goat grass plus einkorn made Emmer's wheat. Now we have 28 chromosomes. Now the family is starting to grow, but at this point it's still a naturally occurring thing. Then we have Emmer's wheat, which mated naturally with Triticum toshi to create what we are more familiar with now as wheat. It's now called Triticum aestivum. This is a family of wheat that has 42 chromosomes. So we originally started with 14, and as the grains started to mate naturally, we ended up with what is closest to wheat now that has 42 chromosomes. Now I'm going to use TA because I don't want to keep saying this long word that represents what is genetically closest to what we know as wheat. And the reason why the society or the community or scientific food communities prefer this kind of wheat is because it's more baking compatible. It allows you to have the fluffy bread, the fluffy muffins, the cakes, the toast. But the issue is the compatibility with its parents, which is einkorn, the original grain. We're getting a little bit too far from the original grain, which is why we start to have digestive issues, neurological issues, things of that nature. So we're going to explain why we have these kinds of issues just because we're having a grain that is not as old as something like einkorn. Einkorn and Emmer's wheat are thousands of genes apart from what we now know as wheat. And the issue with that is the original grains had these long, beautiful stems. Long stems, which you could kind of see in the movie. You see the nice long stems, all of the grasses. Now we're left with this kind of dwarf-like grass. And that is the problem, because the grains that you're getting are the seeds of grasses. In the original einkorn and Emmer's wheat, the seeds clung tightly to the stem. Very, very tightly. But then in the modern wheat, the seeds depart from the stems very easily because of certain mutations. So now we can get into something like here, where we can talk about how are they mutating the original or this version of the wheat so that it can be more profitable for the industry. Now this is what an ancient kind of grass with seeds, because that's all wheat and grains are. They're the seeds of grasses. This is the length it would have been. But now due to manipulation and scientific interference, you have it more so dwarf side. Modern wheat strains can't survive in the world without human support, such as nitrate fertilization, also pest control. That's when a lot of things get sprayed on the grasses in order for them to survive certain conditions. And another thing that scientists are able to do is gene manipulation so that they can increase yield and create things that we really enjoy, like the pastries, the muffins, the brownies, the dumplings, the things that are really soft and nice and create or trigger certain things in our brain for us to want more. So I went ahead and drew what is known as a chromosome, and then I'm going to unbound the chromosome and show you what it looks like to manipulate the genetics of wheat in order for it to be more addictive for us and easier and more profitable for the companies that control this market. Now, like I said, DNA has certain codes in order to replicate, to recreate, to create, to make certain proteins that we need to exist, similar to plants, animals, humans, everything. So let's say that this is the code, right? For a normal wheat strain. What scientists now can do, because scientists no longer need to breed strains or expose seeds or embryos to toxic chemicals or gamma rays and hope for the right mix. Instead, they can delete a single gene and insert and remove strains that are bred for disease resistance. So I'm just going to throw a random letter in here. So what happened? I deleted what's naturally occurring, and now I inserted a new one that's excellent for disease resistance and pesticide resistance, cold, drought, or any number of genetically determined characteristics. New strains can be genetically tailored to be compatible with specific fertilizers or pesticides. Now you can see that this is different. I can see that this is different. But genetic modification in the scientific world is built on the premise that a single gene can be inserted in just the right place without disrupting the genetic expression of other characteristics. And that is not true. What else is the issue with wheat? WGA, wheat germ, gluten. This culprit right here is a part of wheat. Wheat has its own built-in pest-resistant protein. That's what this is. And it's completely indigestible to humans. It's literally able to go from your mouth all the way through your intestines, all the way out of the poopy chute, undigested. It's unfazed by the stomach acid, digestive enzymes, biles, it doesn't matter. It goes right out into the toilet. But the issue with it, so you would probably think, okay, so it's not doing anything to my body, it goes into my mouth, it exits. The issue is it wreaks havoc on the way down from the mouth out of the poopy chute. It wreaks havoc on its way from the mouth down to your butt. Now, let's address the iron issue with wheat. Something that's not really spoken about is that wheat and grains are high in phytates. Remember that. Wheat and grains are high in phytates. We're going to address what that has to do with low iron levels and anemia. Now, what are phytates? Phytates are molecules that have the ability to bind to anything with a positive charge. Probably sounds like gibberish, but it'll make sense soon. A positive charge mineral is iron, magnesium, calcium, zinc. The problem with phytates is that it's able to bind to it and carry it right out of your body. That is the issue. So if you have a diet that's extremely high in white flour, brown flour, certain grains, which we'll go over very soon, the problem is you might not have an anemia issue or an iron deficiency that can be supplemented with iron that you're taking from the doctor or any other herbalist. The problem might be that you do have the iron in your system, but your diet is so high in these kinds of carbohydrates that it's pulling it right out of your body. Mineral deficiency is going to lead to other issues in your body because every single part of your body needs the minerals in order to function. So if you notice that you have a lack of these issues, a lack of these minerals, and you consume a lot of wheats and rices and grains, this might be your problem. This might be your iron problem. Obviously, with women, you have the heavy menstruation too, but that coupled with a poor diet is going to lead to anemia. Anemia is not always, I have low iron, let me supplement. That's not always the case. You can have the iron in your body, but you're just having it pulled out. And then the excessive menstruation, and then the lack of iron issue can also be a full body issue. Because if you don't have highly functioning organs such as your spleen, which has the ability to recycle the iron so that it can reuse that iron along with your liver, if these two organs aren't functioning properly, then you will have anemia issues. So don't look at anemia as a one-part problem, as a, oh, I don't have iron, let me go take an iron supplement. That's not necessarily the case. It could be an issue where you need to strengthen your liver, strengthen your spleen. You would do these with herbs, obviously. Strengthen your blood and change your diet to having more live foods. You don't have to 1000% get rid of these things. I have it from time to time, but it's not my go-to when I want grains. So remember, iron deficiency anemia could be a problem with your diet, with the phytates, but it also could be a liver and a spleen issue because you're supposed to have so much iron in your body due to the fact that your body is able to recycle the iron. Your red blood cells go through a 120-day cycle, and then they die off, and then you get new red blood cells. But before they die off, your spleen chops off the parts that it needs, sends it to the liver so that it could be recycled and held just in case you have an issue where you do need more iron in your body. Your liver could send it into the bloodstream for you. What else are the issues with wheat? Zonulins. Zonulins are proteins that's released in the intestines but disassemble the tight junctions. So these are my intestines, right? I have better pictures on my other page. Your intestines are sealed at these junctions, right here, so that nothing leaks out and goes into your bloodstream, which is right here. Because the purpose of your small intestines in certain areas is to be able to absorb nutrients so that it could be released into your bloodstream, carried out through your body, and function as normal. Zonulins, the protein that's naturally found in wheat, has the ability to disassemble the tight junctions that normally secure the barrier between the intestinal wall. So what are we going to get here? Leaky gut, which medical science still acts like doesn't exist. But leaky gut is a problem because now you have an issue absorbing minerals. So you take in all of these vitamins, you take in your sea moss, you take in your herbs, but you're not getting anything from it because your gut is leaky. You need to change your diet to give time for your intestines to heal. Your intestines only need about a week, possibly a week or a little bit more depending on how damaged it is, in order to start to rebuild the intestinal cells, that the protective barriers around the wall. So remember that. This is another problem, is this protein, zonulins, that can disassemble these tight junctions in the small intestines. So if you have an issue with your gut, you have an issue with leaky gut, wheat. Minimize or eliminate. What else does wheat do? Spikes your blood sugars. So in a man, the high blood sugar is going to lead, obviously, to a large belly, right? But the issue with this is repeated high blood sugar is going to cause fat accumulation in this area, okay? Which means your response to insulin is going to be poorer, and then you're going to increase your visceral fat. This is the fat that is dangerous because it surrounds your major organs and depletes their functioning abilities. So the bigger your belly is in men, the bigger your belly is, the more testosterone is converted into estrogen. The bigger the belly, the more testosterone is converted into estrogen in men. and then the larger the breast. The larger the breast also. So bigger belly equals testosterone to estrogen, larger breast. But it's interesting because in females, it's actually the opposite. So in a female, the larger the belly, the more the estrogen is going to be converted into testosterone. And what does this mean? Facial hair and infertility. The bigger the belly, the faster or the more estrogen is converted into testosterone, which equals facial hair or hair in various areas of your body, along with increased rate of infertility. Keep that in mind, especially with women who are suffering from polycystic ovarian syndrome. You want to minimize your consumption of grains, because one thing is, your body doesn't need that much carbohydrates. It doesn't need that much grains. Your liver stores a very large amount of carbohydrates for when your body needs it. Your liver is the storage house for carbs. So you don't need to keep on carbing up all of the time. You don't need to have that done, especially if you're noticing the shape forming. It's not about aesthetics. It's not about beauty. It's about your hormones being able to function and signal properly without any disturbance from excess fat, excess waste, because these things are going to disturb the signaling system in your body from the pituitary gland all the way down to your ovaries, your testes, your thyroid gland. It's just going to be disruption all throughout your body, and it's going to take you out of homeostasis. And another thing that's interesting that we should be aware of is why when we have cookies and donuts and bread and bagels, why is it that we're never full? Why do we want to just keep on eating and eating and eating? And it's because of the lectins that are in the wheat. Wheat lectins disrupt leptin. Leptin is produced by the fat cells that travel through the bloodstream and to the brain to tell your body to stop eating. Leptin travels through the bloodstream to tell the brain, I'm full, I'm good, stop eating now. The problem with wheat lectin is that it can bind to leptin receptors in the brain, reducing your ability to stop yourself from eating. Leptin, in the brain, it reduces the leptin appetite and it reduces the effect, leading to leptin resistance, which is why you're always going to be hungry after you consume these kinds of food. Obviously, you can reverse this, and you can have your body return back to normal and recognize when you need to stop eating by reducing your consumption of wheat, so that the leptin inside of your brain is able to receive the messages from your stomach, because there is a pathway from the stomach to the brain called the vagus nerves, and the stomach gives most of the information to the brain. So you really want to be careful what you put into your body, because 80% of the direction of information that is told from the stomach is told from the stomach to the brain, not the other way around. So keep that in mind. The things that you put inside of your stomach is going to communicate with your brain. Only 20% of information goes from the brain down. 80% goes from the stomach up. Leptin receptors can bind with wheat lectin and block your ability to say that I am full. So now I'm just going to go over one more thing that wheat has the ability to do. I'm not going to go over gluten. Gluten is for a whole different video. Gluten, we all know, is not easily digestible. It's not good for any of us. But I'll do that in another video. But I want to read something from a book called Wheat Belly. And it says that humans lack the digestive enzyme to break down the components of the seeds of grasses, also known as wheat. The polypeptide has the ability to penetrate the blood-brain barrier. You have a barrier above your brain that stops anything that's in your bloodstream from going directly into your brain, because if that was the case, none of us would make it. So there's a blood-brain barrier. Once the polypeptide is just a chain of an amino acid. It's just a protein. Once it gains entry, it binds to the brain's morphine receptors. The very same receptors to which opiate drugs like oxycodone give you that mild euphoria. So remember that. And it's a good thing to know for your children too that have issues focusing, sitting still, or maybe they're showing signs of ADHD or autism. You have to get them off of the excess processed foods, the grains, the bread. It's literally saying that the wheat polypeptide is able to attach to the same area in the brain that oxycodone attaches to give you that euphoric feeling, letting you know that, wow, this feels so good. That's why when you eat these so-called comfort foods, you feel good for the moment until you don't feel good anymore. So the fact that it plays that kind of role on the brain, you know that these things are poison. Because what really makes something a poison besides the dose? That's all it is. So you have to keep that in mind. Now we're going to move on to the grains that I eat on a regular basis, and the ones that I only have maybe if it's an occasion, if I'm out, there's not much options. I don't put too much restrictions or barriers on myself to say, I'm never going to have this again. It's too much pressure. It's way too much pressure, and it's way too much judgment on yourself. And pressure and judgment can create disease inside. So if I see something that looks really nice, like a piece of croissant, maybe I'm in a place that has it, I'm not going to put the pressure on myself to say, no, I'm not going to have that. If it is once in a blue, it's once in a blue for me. Pressure and restrictions and judgments, I'm not going to do that when it comes to food. I'm going to live my lifestyle the same way for at least 80%, but I leave 20% room for fluctuation, because you're not always going to be in an environment that's going to be conducive to the way that you eat. That's just the way it is. So if you have to shift here and there, I don't make a big deal out of it. Other people do, but that just leads to more judgment of self and causing stressors in your body. And your body knows, like, oh, you're judging yourself, something is wrong, and then you start to secrete different hormones that aren't beneficial for your body. So let's go over the best grains here, people. All right, so now to the nitty-gritty. These are the gluten-free grains, because gluten has a sticky protein that is undigestible, but it has the ability to also, just like the wheat germ gluten, it can disassemble the tight junctions in your small intestines and allow for large food particles, large protein molecules to go into your bloodstream and cause an inflammatory response. So if you do have some type of autoimmune disease, first thing you want to do is come off the grains for a good amount of time. There's not even any really wiggle room. You just need to come off the grains completely and just do fruits, vegetables, and provisions, which we'll talk about. So these are the grains. I would say the top two grains that you can have on a regular basis would be quinoa and amaranth. And my favorite is fonio. Honestly, I've never tried teff and millet. I hear good things about it, never tried it. But quinoa, amaranth, and fonio are my three favorites. Although rice is gluten-free, in the rice fields you have the risk of arsenic, which is a heavy metal that you do not want in your body. That is the issue with rice, whether white or brown. Contaminated with arsenic in the rice fields. Arrowroot is good to make porridge with. That's a really good one too. Buckwheat, I'm not truly a fan of, but it is gluten-free, and it's not going to give you all of the issues that we discussed earlier. So quinoa, amaranth, and fonio are my top favorites. I do like arrowroot so that you can make some type of porridge, and also buckwheat is all right. I guess you could get that as a bread, but at the end of the day, I still wouldn't mess with it because it is a form of wheat. Now, some other ones that have gluten that I still have is spelt. Spelt is still at least 6,000 years, actually 8,000 years old. And scientifically, it says that it takes about 40 to 70,000 years for any significant changes to take place in the genome that will allow us to adapt to the changes of the environment. But me personally, I don't have issues when I consume spelt. I use spelt over white or wheat flour because it can still allow me to make fried dumplings. They have spelt pasta. They have, and all different forms too. So if you want to make a nice mac and cheese without dealing with the wheat or the white flour, spelt is really nice. Unless you have gluten sensitivity, then you cannot have it. Kamut is also really nice. It's also an ancient grain. These two, I would say, are the most ancient and probably the closest compatibility for us to be able to digest without too much issues. These are the ancient grains that I still have. Then you have rye. I have that once in a blue. They make rye sourdough. Sometimes I have that, like I said, once in a blue. Bulgur, I'm not really a huge fan of barley, semolina, then you got the wheat and the white flour. I don't do any of these. I probably do bulgur once in a blue, but I really don't care for it. These two, if you can still consume gluten, these two are the best options to replace white and brown products that are in your house. Get rid of them, get spelt and kamut. They come as flour, they come as pasta. As far as rice, Caribbean people, American people, there's so much options besides rice. Let's get away from the rice. Like I said, most of the fields are extremely contaminated. Quinoa, amaranth, teff, I hear good things about. Never made it. Millet, fonio is one of my favorites because it cooks in like 6 minutes. It don't get any better than that. It's an ancient African grain, and a lot of the companies that you buy it from, a lot of the proceeds will go to certain communities in Africa, and arrowroot and buckwheat. So these are my favorites right here. You can play around with the other ones, but just get out of this, man. There's a lot of different options. There's so much more to life than rice. Get out of the rice, get out of the wheat, get out of the white flour. These are once in a blue moon foods, not something that you want to have every single day. All right, so if you need to screenshot it, you can. If you never heard of any of these, look up some recipes online. I am not a chef. I make things very simple. I don't overcomplicate food. And if you do have an addiction to wheat and flour, you're probably just gonna need some type of detox so that you could cleanse out your gut, and you can change and you can shift the bacteria that's in your gut so that you can start to enjoy new things. Your taste buds change every 10 days. All you need to do is be consistent with something for at least 2 weeks to feel some sort of shift. So if you are addicted to rice, give yourself at least 2 weeks off rice and replace it with these. And if you have a large gut, you can't have any of these things until you get that under control. Because like I said, it's not about aesthetics, it's about hormone signaling, it's about disturbing the digestive system, it's about constipation. Because the moment you can't go to the bathroom every single day, understand that that constipation is going to start to rise into different areas of your body, is going to manifest itself as certain diseases. So if you have a very large gut, people that do my detox, I do not recommend that they have any grains at all, unless it's to the point where they are really, really suffering and they can't handle doing raw fruits and vegetables. Then I do have quinoa, amaranth, and fonio on my list of foods if it gets too difficult. But for me, if this is your profile and you want to work on this, if you're a man that has low testosterone and high estrogen, and you can tell that just from the gut, the breast, or stamina is lowered, you want to get rid of all of this, and you want to start getting into a very simple diet, at least temporarily. And that simple diet is going to be a majority of live foods, foods that can give back to you. Fruits with seeds and vegetables that are organic so that you can avoid all of the chemicals that are sprayed on these things by farmers so that they can yield profits. And another thing a lot of Caribbean people have that I find to be pretty easy on my digestive system is called provisions, right? So we have yams, we have dasheen, we have pumpkin, we have chocho. These are some of the things, and then sometimes, banana, green banana. Green banana. These are called provisions. A lot of Caribbean people have this. You boil water, you cut up a lot of these things, you put it in the boiled water, and that's so that we don't consume rice every day, because these things have a lot of vitamins and minerals in them. And some people, after they boil the food, called boiled food, after they boil the food, they drink the water, because there's a lot of minerals in these foods and a lot of these ground vegetables. So pumpkin, chocho, banana, dashi, yams. I'm sure there's other people that could add to this list. But you can, that's what I prefer. I'm not heavy into grains. It's not my thing. I like wild food. This is what I really like. And for people that have a hard time gaining weight, boiled food is pretty good too, because it doesn't go straight to your belly. It's really, really nice. But you have to work out while you're eating it if you're starting to consume a lot of this to put weight on. Also, another issue is if you can't gain weight, you might have to do a detox so that you can heal your gut. Because some people are eating, and they're not getting any weight. Why? Because you're not able to absorb the nutrients from the food, because the intestinal lining has this big gap in it. So you're not absorbing anything into your bloodstream to be carried over into your muscles. You need to do a detox. You know what I'm saying? All right. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate you. This message has been powered by High Frequency. Y'all know where to find me. Nico_09 or High Frequency. All right? And don't forget, we sell sea moss now. All right? Straight from Jamaica. Straight from the coast of Jamaica. It's beautiful. It's clean. I have a nice sea moss video coming for you very soon. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Obviously, it was too long. You know how I do. Sorry. Can't help it. Can't help it. Don't know what to do. Oh well. Love you.